The war ended in 1945. The bases Ulithi, Tinian, the canine kennels were struck, their material salvaged or left to rust. But one base remained fully operational. It had no geographic location. Its headquarters was the startled mind of a veteran trying to sleep. Its perimeter was the edge of a dinner table, where laughter could suddenly sound like shouting. This was the base of trauma, and its sentries were on a permanent, silent watch. This base was constructed not by engineers, but by experience. Its architecture was made of specific, terrible memories. The sound of a certain artillery shell's inbound whistle, the screaming Mimi, the smell of wet wool and cordite, the sight of a particular shade of red in a sunset. These were not mere memories. They were sensor arrays, constantly scanning the peaceful civilian world for threats. The base operated on its own logic. A car backfiring on a sunny street in Peoria was not a malfunction. It was an incoming round. The veteran's body would react before his mind could intervene. A dive for cover, a racing heart, a cold sweat. A sudden movement in a crowded movie theater was not a man reaching for popcorn. It was a grenade being primed. The veteran would freeze, his eyes tracking the potential threat, his muscles coiled, while the peaceful world blithely carried on around him. The personnel of this base were the veteran's senses, all reporting to a command center that refused to believe the war was over. The mission was constant: maintain vigilance. The peace is a trick. The attack is coming. Sleep was the most dangerous operation, for in sleep the base's defenses were down, and the past could stage a full-scale assault. Nightmares were not dreams. They were breaches in the perimeter. This base had no supply line from the VA. It was self-sustaining, fueled by a guilt that would not deplete and a fear that would not demobilize. Its currency was silence. Men who had been brothers in the foxhole now found they could not speak of the one thing that defined them. To talk about it was to risk contaminating the home front, to bring the war into the living room. So they locked it down inside the base, and the pressure built. The only others who understood the layout of this internal fortress were other veterans. A glance across a bar, a certain way of holding a cigarette, a shared silence on Memorial Day. This was the secret handshake of those who manned the same invisible permanent watch. They didn't need to talk. They recognized the base in each other's eyes. For some, this base would be their command post for the rest of their lives. For others, over decades, the alerts would become less frequent. The sensors would slowly recalibrate. A backfire would become just a backfire, but the base was never fully decommissioned. It was merely mothballed, its alarms switched to standby, ready to scream back to life at a trigger no one else could hear. This, then, was the final and most enduring base of World War II. It was not built on coral or French soil, but in the human nervous system. It proved that the most permanent structures of war are not made of steel, but of memory and fear. And its victory condition was not the defeat of an enemy army, but the long, lonely, and often losing battle to convince its own commander that the watch could finally, safely stand down. The war had an end date. For the men who fought it, the base within did not.